So recently, Kimi Antonelli has been getting a bit of flack, some very unnecessary flack in the media and online. And I don't like this, guys. I really don't like this. And I think this is a bit of a false narrative that is going around at the moment unfairly on the 18-year-old Italian. Because yes, while he did have a very poor weekend at Belgium and we expected better of him, I did as well. I thought Spa would be a better circuit for him. Mercedes overly didn't do too great throughout this weekend either, even in George Russell's hands. But Kimi Antonelli is most definitely not underperforming this season. And I think what we're experiencing right now is, as we always have done in F1, unfortunately, is a knee-jerk reaction, a recency bias. Because let's deal with the actual facts, because that's what we do here. Let's have a quick run through of his actual season thus far, to have a look at exactly the ins and outs of his races and the reasons as to why he has had 4 DNFs in particular, because on face value, I can see why many will go, oh, it's not been too good because he's had 4 DNFs this season. Well, there's nuance behind those 4 DNFs. As we always know in F1, it's not just black and white. So let's have a quick dive into his race results and just showcase to you guys, because I feel like I need to defend Kimi here, that this season thus far, I think, has been very good for Kimi Antonelli and exactly what Mercedes would have wanted, and they will be not worried about this dip in performance at this stage of the season, halfway through in his first ever season in F1 at all. So let's start really with the first 6-7 races. Australia, first race, he qualified poorly, of course, 16th, his first ever session in F1. And, well, we cannot deny the brilliance and the plaudits that he got for the recovery drive that he had in those treacherous conditions. Many had seen his F2 exploits where he'd won his first ever race in wet conditions at Silverstone from start to finish, and he won his full feature race in F2, his second win there at Hungary in changeable conditions as well. That's exactly what he showcased, that talent-wise, as why he's so highly regarded and why Mercedes put him in that car in as replacement for Lewis Hamilton, and he finished 4th just off of the podium. Great start to his career. He follows it up with a sprint race 7th, qualify 7th, finishes 7th in the China sprint race. And then the race itself, he makes up 2 positions and finishes 6th. A solid start to his F1 career. A P4, a P7 and a P6. Japan qualifies 6th, finishes 6th, and if memory serves me correctly, he ended up chasing down George Russell at the end of the race. And well, with maybe a few more laps, he might have actually caught him and overtook him. Had tremendous pace at Suzuka, considering it's a track he's never raced at before, even in junior formulas. So very, very good performance for there. Bahrain was thus far his worst performance. He qualified 4th, his best qualifying to date, but then he got tangled up, a bit of inexperience, getting caught up in fights that he shouldn't have got caught up in, and got caught up in those moments of getting a bit too racy, most particularly with Carlos Sainz. And because of that, he picked up a little bit of damage, which meant he ended up finishing outside of the points in P11. But still showed some racing chops and still showed that this is a lad we can be excited for moving forward. And once again, another great qualifying, showcasing that this is a driver that, given the car underneath him, he has got raw pace and he is going to utilise it. We then headed to Saudi Arabia, where he qualified 5th and finished 6th. Very solid result once again for him. And then he went to Miami, where he had the best qualifying performance of his season. He qualified from absolutely nowhere on pole position. Wowee. Got caught out, of course, by Oscar Piastri, utilising the racing rules to his advantage, the overtaking rules to his advantage, and got shoved out there down into turn 1. And he got a bit flustered because of that. Bit of inexperience, as he even said afterwards that he'd learned a lot from that. And well, he ended up unfortunately finishing down in 7th. But still, with that Mercedes in its current guise, we know it's not a car that's going to be able to hold off the McLarens. It is only really quick in very circumstantial and specific conditions, as we saw in Canada, which we'll get to. But Miami, in those qualifying conditions, it was superb, as he followed that up as many thought, could he do the same again? It was only a fluke on the Friday to qualify on pole position for the sprint race. He qualified third and was lining up on the second row. Subsequently lost a couple of positions again throughout the race, as that Mercedes did not have the best race pace, and finished sixth. But still, solid. He's worst. There's only one race where he's finished outside of the points thus far, and we're already at Miami. That's Bahrain, where he qualified fourth. He's yet to qualify. He's only got one race where he's qualified outside of the top 10, and that's his first race in F1. So Q3 all the way for Kimi. And then the one track where we expect him to do very well, and maybe this sometimes this can have a detrimental effect to you. Imola, more pressure on him. His home circuit. He's a homegrown boy there. And unfortunately, he had a very poor qualifying. He qualified 13th. Uncharacteristic for him, where he's done so much testing at. But sometimes that can be the case at a circuit where there's more expectation on you. And of course, there was a lot of media coverage around Kimi there, more so than even the first race of the season, and maybe that just got a little bit too much for the 18-year-old. But he did recover in that race. This was his first DNF of the season, and he was in 8th position at this moment in time. He was on an alternate strategy compared to George Russell, and it seemed he was going to be on the right strategy because he was a position ahead of his teammate, 8th at the time. So even if George would have caught up to him and overtaken him, it did look like he was going to be finishing in the points. A good recovery nonetheless. And then his engine blew up, and that is not in his control. This was the first of a run of poor performances for the Mercedes engine up and down the grid via the Aston Martin and the Williams team as well. So real shame for him, but he could have scored points there again that weekend. Then we headed to Monaco, where yes, this is really the first driver error of Kimi Antonelli, and where many may say this poor run of form has started, in air quotes there, because Kimi Antonelli made that mistake where he headed down into the Nivelle chicane, and of course he clipped his left rear there and it sent him into the barrier. He wasn't the only other rookie to do that weekend. Isaac Hadjar also did that, so it just showcased that these drivers who have been there in F2 were not accustomed to how small the margins are with these much larger F1 cars compared to their F2. Then we headed to Spain, qualified 6th, a great bounce back for him, really looking good. He was running in 7th in that race, and his engine cut out again towards the end, which brought out that late safety car, which of course caused Max and George's tangle, which caused all of the headlines. But Kimi Antonelli, it was a good recovery race for him. It was a good bounce back. Qualified 6th, was running 7th at the time. Who knows if he would have finished any higher? I don't think so, but still a good solid performance for him considering what had happened in Monaco, and his engine cut out again. The second time in 3 races. That is not great for Kimi Antonelli, and of course it's not going to be great for his confidence as well. While yes, of course you are thinking he's qualified 6th and he's having a good race, you still want to see that end result, and unfortunately he wasn't able to see it. However, the next race that followed up, Canada, unbelievable. His best performance of the year, I think, more so than even what happened in Australia, because he qualified 4th. We know George Russell was the eventual winner of this race, and Mercedes, this is the one race weekend where Mercedes have been the fastest team. Absolutely brilliant. Now, many will say, and I'll get onto this point shortly, that criticism-wise, he finished 3rd, he couldn't finish 2nd and overtake Max Verstappen, and, well, his teammate won this race, so why didn't he make it a 1-2 for Mercedes? I'll get onto that because I do think that that is relatively unfair. But a P3, his first podium in F1 and not even halfway through the season yet. Absolutely brilliant for him in a car that really has no right to be up there. And that's the first time as well, while there's credit been for George Russell capitalising on when that car is capable of winning a race, which has only been one race thus far, and securing it. You have to say the same for Kimi Antonelli and give him the credit as well, that as soon as he had a car underneath him that was capable of winning a race and scoring a podium, he did that as well. Then we unfortunately head to probably Kimi's lowest moment, even more so than Monaco. It was in Austria. Now, the Red Bull Ring, he qualified 8th, so not tremendously well, but still another Q3 performance. Kimi Antonelli thus far has done pretty much, I think, what Mercedes and Toto Wolff would have wanted of him, and consistently get into Q3 and give themselves the best opportunity to consistently score points. That is what he has been able to do, and that is why Mercedes find themselves also in third place in the Constructors at the moment, not far behind Ferrari in second. So he unfortunately, at the start, as we know, big rookie error, his biggest mistake thus far, where he completely missed his braking zone. He will say, of course, that up into turn 3 that he got caught out by those braking up ahead, but you should foresee that on the first lap there is always a concertina effect there, and that drivers do generally take it a bit easier heading up into turn 3 because of that very reason. He completely misjudged it, had to take avoiding action, and T-boned Max Verstappen. So, lowest moment for him. Can he bounce back just like he did after Monaco? Well, he headed to the GB Grand Prix at Silverstone, and guess what? He did. He qualified in 7th. However, what eventually happened is that he had a DNF. Now, what happened with his DNF? It was Isaac Hadjar going into the back of Kimi because Kimi was being a bit cautious, overly cautious heading into Copse Corner, and well, that's not Kimi's fault because of the conditions. Isaac Hadjar couldn't see, there was no visibility, and he couldn't see Kimi until he actually hit him. The stewards even ruled as that as well, that no driver was imparted blame. However, Kimi shouldn't have found himself in that position in the first place, because if you guys remember, George Russell pitted at the end of the formation lap to come onto slick tyres. He was one of a few. He took a gamble and it backfired. It was not suitable enough for them. Kimi Antonelli at the end of lap 1 pitted onto slick tyres as well. This is a strategy which I do massively question and criticise of Mercedes, because for one, why did they not split their strategy? I always said this, you're better off leaving, especially your less experienced, your more inexperienced driver, your rookie driver, you're better off to leave him on those intermediate tyres where he is already showcased he is comfortable on back in Australia in those treacherous conditions. Why not leave him there and leave him in track position, and actually gained a few spots at that time with some of those ahead of him already pitting? But no, they decided to put their inexperienced rookie driver onto slick tyres on the first stint, and well, he suffered massively, as did many, but he and Bortoletto, the rookies, didn't do very well in those conditions on the slicks. It completely ruined his race, and then of course he then found himself further back than he should have done and getting caught up in a lot of mess, and he had an early retirement. So that is purely Mercedes' fault, not Kimi Antonelli's, and that's 3 DNFs out of the 4 now that I think are completely out of his control and not his fault whatsoever. The blame lies on his team. Then we head, of course, to our most recent race, which is Belgium at Spa, which, yes, was very uncharacteristic, and it seemed to have hit Kimi quite hard and close to home that he performed quite poorly. And he is only a young lad. He is only 18 years old, and there's no doubt as well that the youngsters are brought up they're a generation that are brought up on technology and on social media, and they probably pay a lot more attention to it than the elder statesmen do. Some drivers have had to learn to completely block this out. This is probably something that Kimi Antonelli is going to have to learn as well. But it's going to be very difficult for him. But clearly he's an emotional guy. He's a competitive guy. And I can speak from my experience of growing up when I was younger, that I would get tearful when I failed and when I had let a team down, or when I hadn't performed to the best of my abilities, because I so badly wanted to do well. And this is in numerous sports that I was involved in when I was younger. And when you've got such a competitive nature, that really hits home for you. And I can only imagine what he is feeling when the whole world's media is on you and people are commenting about you online. I think he is allowed to be upset. He is allowed to have those low moments. It's how you pick yourself up from them. And I think there's showcased here this, from what we've just gone through his results thus far in this season, after the 13th race of this season out of 24, he has done brilliant. He has bounced back from those low moments. And He is currently P7 in the championship. He has 1 podium. He has 6 top 10s. He arguably has missed out on 3 more top 10s because of Mercedes issues with their engine and, of course, what happened at Silverstone. So he could be on 9. He has 1 sprint pole position. And I don't really know what more people... I don't know why he's getting the criticism. Now, he is not excluded from criticism. He, rightfully so, has been criticised when he's made those mistakes in Monaco, in Austria, and, well, even here this weekend, he just hasn't been able to get on top of the car. And George Russell did come out in his defence and state, it's not KIMI who's gone backwards, it's the team. The team has gone backwards, relinquishing some responsibility from Kimi Antonelli. Now, yes, Kimi could have done a lot better because you look at George and George was able to get that into P5. So there was potential for Kimi this weekend to get that car into Q3 and do what he has done so often this season, finish in the top 10 and pick up some solid points. But for some reason, low on confidence, couldn't get on the front foot, and we've only won... Maybe we've only obviously one practice session here at Spa. He just, where he didn't have that confidence in that first practice session, was always on the back foot. And especially with what happened with that spin through Stuffeyy, which, yes, also caused his teammates to miss out on qualifying by causing him damage. Maybe he just felt like there was a lot of weight on his shoulders that weekend, and he was the cause of that, and took that very personally. And that can happen when you're young and you're eager to please, which I'm sure Kimi Antonelli is. But I don't subscribe to this idea that he's going through this massive downturn at the moment in performance. There's been some odd mistakes, but overall he has been bouncing back relatively well. And it was only a couple of races ago that he finished on the podium. Austria, yes, was a low moment, but Silverstone should have been that bounce back that we have seen a couple of times already this season. And when people will compare him, of course, to George Russell, because you're always compared to your teammates, yes, he has been comprehensively outperformed when it comes to facing George Russell. But who in their right mind expects him to beat George Russell in his first season, in a season which many believe he shouldn't even be participating in the first place, which I don't agree. I think the opportunity has presented itself for him. Why not bring him in this season and get him used to exactly this, the whole circus that is F1. Experience the highs, the lows that you are going to have in F1. Yes, many will think that it's maybe a bit too young to be exposed to that, but in many parts of the world, when you turn 18, you're considered an adult. So it's something that obviously Mercedes no doubt will be coaching him through and will be lending their support with him through. But I think he's done more than a stellar job thus far, more than what Mercedes have probably asked of him. He's also in a Mercedes, and I think this needs to be put into context a little bit. He is in a Mercedes that is not capable of winning races. McLaren are too good. Max Verstappen is still too good in that Red Bull. They are fighting Ferrari the majority of times, and even then, they're probably worse off than Ferrari. Them and Ferrari are the third or fourth fastest team, and Kimi Antonelli is the only rookie in those top 4 teams. And what is he doing? He is at least finishing behind them most times, and not that far behind them in some instances as well, and sometimes even outperforming them and beating Lewis Hamilton and of course he's beating the second Red Bull car, but he's doing exactly what Mercedes and Toto Wolff would have asked for him. He's doing exactly what I would expect of him, to be honest. And of course everyone knows that my opinion and what I want matters most. But just thought I needed to come on here and defend Kimi Antonelli because it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, the amount of criticism that he's getting at the moment, and I don't think it's justified whatsoever. And I hope he comes back and bounces back at a track which he is strong at the Hungaroring, where he won his first F2 feature race last year in tremendous fashion. So yeah, he is doing very well, and he is, as I mentioned, experiencing these highs and lows and preparing himself for a brand new set of regulations for next season. And that no doubt is what Mercedes want and Toto Wolff want. They want him to be exposed to this get him used to F1 in this last year of this regulation set him some targets, which no doubt he is achieving, and then it's fresh new slate when it comes to 2026, as it is for the whole field. But yeah, what do you think about Kimi Antonelli's performances? I think there's nothing to worry about. We are seeing some rookie mistakes, as we expect from rookies, as we have seen from many of the rookies up and down the grid. And I think this whole media onslaught and online onslaught in the last couple of races is just totally unjustified. There's always more nuance to race results than just the black and whites where they finished.